Greetings everyone, this is Ehab Ever from the Chronicles of Ehab Ever, and today I'm going to do a video about a topic I've been thinking about for a while, and that's on the question of whether or not history is truly written by the winners. Now what got me started on this topic was a conversation I had with someone about a year ago. We were talking about truth versus, I guess, the issue of historical content. My idea being that there are things that are true and can be provable to be true using the right method, and at a certain point in the discussion, the person was mentioning about history and what is history written by. And my response was the winners. But when I thought about it a few weeks later, I was kind of like, wait a minute, I don't 100% agree with that. History's not really 100% written by the winners. Just to explain the concept of, I guess, the statement, there are people who say that basically because you have a nation that comes in, conquers another nation, and then they're the ones who get to write the history books about exactly what happened. Now, yeah, in some situations that may be true, and maybe in many situations that may be true. But if you think about it from a historical perspective, maybe that's not 100% true, and maybe the statement is being misconstrued a bit. I could only find two sources for the statement, and one being Winston Churchill, who was basically talking about the idea that the history is written by the winners because of the fact that most of the people who are the losers are the people who are illiterate or uneducated. So in that sense, yes, in that situation, those who are educated are winning, and those who are educated can pass on whatever information they want to future generations. Um, the second source I could find for it came from Napoleon, but I couldn't find any other information around his context of what he was talking about. But I can only assume, because it was Napoleon, that it was basically dealing with the issue of conquest, which is interesting because I found a graphic which is included in this video that if history is written by the winners, why is there French history? And the fact, if you think about it, there's a number of countries that have lost wars, lost conflicts, and people who've lost conflicts who still have histories that are out there. Um, so I'm going to basically say I have a different kind of concept about this whole thing. And my concept is that you have people who have histories that have been conquered by other people, been completely squashed, by the people, but survived. And part of the way that they survived is was they had some way of transmitting their information, whether that be through a written context or an oral context. Now, having a writing system and an oral system way of talking is never enough. You have to have the will to be able to pass all that information to future generations. So that being the reality, there's a number of cultures that we know of that have preserved history because they had the system and they had the will to be able to preserve what they wanted. A good example is you look at the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire conquered a lot of different nations, but then they basically fell apart. And one example of a nation they conquered was the Jewish nation in Judea. And even though they conquered Judea, Jewish texts from that time still appear and still exist. So in that situation, it's not 100% true that history is written by the winners because the winners of that war disappeared off the face of the map. The losers of that war still exist today. Another example that I thought of was also capoeira. From all the histories I learned about capoeira, originally it was considered illegal in the parts of South America where it was being practiced, and eventually it had to go underground. I think there was a number of I forgot how many decades it was that there was actually underground training of capoeira, and I think almost until the early parts of maybe the 20th century, maybe. I'd have to verify that, but I think that's what I heard. But you look at it, capoeira right now is very popular, and it was partially underground for a number of years. It was actually people wouldn't teach it to the average guy because of whatever issues are going on in South America about it. Um, so that's where my concept is a little bit different. I'm a firm believer, as I mentioned before, that history is written by those who have the I guess you could say history is actually written by those who have, first of all, something to write. They have information that they want to preserve and pass on. Second of all, it's written by those who actually have a system to either write it or orally transmit it. And then third thing, they have to have the will to do it. So if a person has the first two things but no will to actually take that information and transform it into a passable format, well, there you go. They're gone. The person who has the will to do that, he's the person who gets to pass all that information in the future, and he's the person that people know about. Where the person who doesn't have the will to transmit it or preserve it, well, who cares? A few years after there dead, maybe 100 years after they're gone, that person's gone, the other person's still around. So this is just a quick video on my ideas concerning the concept of is history written by the winners? I think not. It's written by those who have the will to pass on information and have the system to do it with. Thanks. Bye.